Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled "Neat Ideas to Spite Drug-Dealing Neighbors." My motto here is confuse, don't abuse. Backstory: my neighbors live in a flagpole lot, which basically means they are tucked way back and we almost share a driveway. The only property of theirs that touches the street is their driveway, which is really inconvenient for their dealing drugs. The junkies and addicts regularly park in front of my house and occasionally wander down my driveway. It is incredibly irritating. Add onto that the kid, he is 21, that is stealing is a little wannabe gangster, so we have those dumbasses coming and going all hours as well. In the last 3 years we have had weeks of a junkie living in a beat-up RV, pissing and using in the street in front of my side yard, leaving used needles everywhere, knives pulled on us when I said loudly from my driveway, if they would quit dealing drugs, our dogs would quit barking at them. Our dog got kicked in the ribs for lunging at a junkie in our driveway, 2 stolen vehicles abandoned in our and our neighbor's yard because they have no street front property, a work truck broken into with $3,000 plus of property stolen out of it. And many headaches from being so pissed off. Among other things, I have called the police, called the drug task force, installed cameras, spoken with sergeants. Nothing ever sticks to this slippery little worm. So, long story longer, I need the internet's help. I want to start screwing with them. I don't want to get myself into trouble, but I want to be as petty as possible. Think in the vein of Home Alone or the people who spray painted dicks in potholes. Should I print flyers reading "Need drugs? Come to address. Must like the color red and be okay with gang affiliations," and toss them out of my car window all over town? Should I use water-soluble spray paint and paint drug dealers on the street with arrows going up their driveway? There's a preschool on our street, so I'm 100% sure some pissed off parents would leap into action. Should I accidentally let my garden hose leak onto their driveway overnight and watch them all slip and fall on their asses? Please, I need some spiteful inspiration. Update: neon signs in the street and obvious photo taking has gathered all the right attention. And a user in the comments recommended motion sensing lights. Some junkies don't like to be illuminated when going to a deal. Place signs around your yard along the lines of "Smile for the camera. Entering this property means you consent to being recorded. Video footage automatically sent to police," or "Facial recognition in progress." If you have Wi-Fi, change the name to something like "Local PD Narcotics Unit Number 1. Some junkies are too stupid to realize the police would never reveal themselves like that, so when that name shows up on their phone, they will run and never come back. Call code enforcement on them for anything that violates local ordinance. If they still have the RV, they might be in violation. My area, not an HOA, bans RV parking at your house. You can get a 72-hour permit for a fee to ready it for vacation, but no permit, graduated fine. Health department for the needles, overgrown grass or trash piles in the yard, health department for those as well. Long grass attracts vermin that could carry disease. Last thing any health department wants is another outbreak of a different disease on top of this one. And another user suggested, I have suggested this before, invest in an older white van with blackout windows, put some obviously fake sign on the side, like Paul's Plumbing. Have a friend drive it to your neighborhood and park it as if it has a view of the drug seller's house and leave it. You have the keys, and every time you notice someone getting too close to it, set the alarm off and then reset it. Occasionally have a friend come in the middle of the night and repark it and then leave. Bonus points if you know anyone that looks like a plainclothes cop. Deliver 2 empty Starbucks cups and an empty box of donuts to the van, place them inside and then drive off as the neighbors watch. Update on the drug-dealing neighbors. I posted a while ago looking for spiteful things to do to my pain-in-the-butt neighbors. Drugs, gang activity, overdose, stolen vehicles and so on. Well, the nephew, who is 30-something and doesn't live there, came peeling down their driveway and aggressively yelled at me while I was checking my mail. While complaining, he slipped up and said,
"Keep your signs out from in front of our property."
Curious, I pointed out that it is not their property, they are a flagpole lot, they have no street front property. The next day I looked up who owns the house. It is the nephew's mom who lives in another city. And our state holds the loan. Under their loan conditions, the owner must live on the premises and there is to be no renting of any kind. I am so excited to call the state on Monday and inform them that they are renting and their renter is renting out rooms. I'm going to email them video of stolen vehicles coming up and down the driveway and the ambulances rescuing the overdose. God, if the dumbass nephew had kept his mouth shut, I never would have looked into this. I feel like a kid on Christmas. Final update on the drug dealing neighbor's story. After contacting the loan holder for their home, they said they couldn't do anything and suggested I try contacting the city. I emailed a few members of the city council who emailed the mayor, who emailed the chief of police. Who had it taken care of in 48 hours. 3 years of BS resolved in 48 hours. It's been quiet as a mouse for days. I've finally been able to sleep. Apparently, being a Karen is necessary from time to time. Hopefully this is the end of the flagpole lot bullcrap party. Not going to lie, I kinda wish I had been able to really zing them. Sprinklers, motion alarms, stink spray, you know, but I guess the legal way is the best way. And Ripe Stars, if you have watched until here and enjoy my content, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and maybe even like the video if you wanna support me. Thank you so much in advance, it really means the world to me and it helps my channel tremendously. And the next one is titled, Park in my driveway? Hope you plan to stay the night. This was several years ago when I was living at my parents' house still. I was around 19 at the time. I used to drive an old pickup truck which I always parked in the street in front of my house as my parents put one car in the garage and the other in the driveway on the other side. This way no one was ever blocked in. Our old neighbors used to always have large gatherings of family and friends and seemed like once a month I would come home and find our street lined with cars all at their house. One weekend my parents went out of town, which left the driveway open, so I parked in it. Because why not? This was on a Saturday. I realized that our neighbors were having people over. No big deal, happens regularly, they are polite and quiet. Their guests will sometimes park close to being in front of our driveway, which is annoying when trying to back out with cars basically surrounding it on all sides. I decided to run and pick myself up some dinner around probably 6 to 7 p.m. I was gone maybe half an hour and when I get back I noticed that someone was parked right smack in the middle of our driveway. It was not just any car though, it was a G-Wagon. I had seen this SUV several times before, usually as one of the cars parked close to the front of our driveway, but this time they decided to park in our driveway. Could I have gone and asked them to move the car and park elsewhere? Of course I could have. Did I? No. Instead I parked my truck across the entire entrance to the driveway, blocking them in. After a few hours I get a knock at the door. Guess who it is? The car's owner, having the gall to ask me to move my truck so they can leave. I could have moved it, no problem. Instead I told them as I had already gone and picked up dinner, I had no reason to leave until at least the next afternoon. They asked if I could just move it as they wanted to go home. I told them again I had no reason to leave and my truck is really loud and I didn't want to disturb the other neighbors by starting it so late at night. And they were welcome to come back for it tomorrow. I left the truck there until around noon the next day, not sure how they got home as this was before Uber and there were no taxis in the area and they were one of the last vehicles to leave the party, but that ain't my problem. Should have thought about that before parking in my driveway. And the next one is titled, Entitled Neighbor Threaten Dogs and I Break. Years ago, my mother and I had just moved to a new dog-friendly apartment complex. We had 2 dogs, one was a Bichon Shih Tzu and the other is a Terrier Poodle mix. Because of them, we were excited for the community dog park right next to our building. Also to note, our building was filled with dog owners, each with dogs ranging from small to huge. Our apartment was on the first floor in the back of the building, all the way in the corner. It was a nice private area for us with how the apartments were situated. Since one of our dogs is a terrier, he can be a bit barky when we are not home. Though when we are home, we have a clicker to get his attention, which he has been trained to stop barking and come to whoever has the clicker. Due to our work hours, I was usually home in the morning and Mom was home in the afternoon, leaving him alone for a few hours during the day. After a month of moving to our new apartment, we received a note on our door. It was from one of our neighbors. It stated,
"Dear neighbor, I understand that you are new to this complex, but it is rude to allow your dog to bark. It is ruining my sleep before I go to work and my job is extremely important. I don't care how you do it, but shut your dog up."
My mom turned in the note right away to the leasing office as she wasn't sure what to do with it. That is when the office told us not to worry because he had done this to every dog owner in the building. They did ask us to see if we can find ways to calm him down when we were not home. So we did. We found out the kids of the neighborhood liked playing with the power station outside our apartment, and that is who he had been barking at. So we closed off that area for him when we went out and no one was home. We started playing calming music as a way to help as well, and another week goes by and this time we hear a knock at the door. We go outside and we meet our angry neighbor. He explains that our dog has kept him up every day and woke him up with his hours of barking. Both of us had been home that day and our dog had been a good boy and had not had excessive barking. I still remember what he had told us when I explained that.
"I know what I heard. If you cannot control your dog, then I'm going to call animal control and have them both taken from you. I did it before and have no problem getting rid of your dogs too. Then I will get you kicked out for not following your lease, and I can do that because I'm very rich and the apartment needs my money. So, do something to shut your dogs up or else."
After that, and my mom apologizing for what had happened, we went back in. A few moments later I walked out to get the mail and discovered from another neighbor that he had gone to 3 other apartments and made similar threats. After some convincing, my mom told the apartment what had happened. We were told not to worry and if he did that again to please contact them. We also found out that the apartment had offered him an apartment away from the dogs, but he had declined since the dogs were the problem and not him. However, what he had done, my mom began to show signs of anxiety and bought a lemon spray bark collar for our dog. While I didn't like this idea, it had put her at ease to go outside our apartment. We did make sure to only put it on him when we both were not home. A month went by peacefully and then once again we get a knock on our door. This time it was animal control. They had gotten an anonymous report of a dog being abused and neglected in our home. They explained that someone has said that our dogs were barking because of neglect. My mom invited the AC lady inside and explained the situation. We showed her everything we could to prevent our dogs from being taken away. The nice lady noticed how playful and happy our dogs were and figured it was another false call. She explained that they had gotten a few of those from an anonymous concerned neighbor for other apartments in this building. The AC lady left, telling us that if they are threatening again to try and get it on record. This event had turned my mom into a paranoid person who became afraid to leave the house, thinking that if she did then she would lose her pups. Normally I'm the calmest person in my family, never really letting anyone get to me, but this neighbor had did this to hurt us. So I did my research and discovered a few things that could legally help us. With new information on certain laws and leasing terms, I formed a plan. During a weekend that my mom was visiting my aunt in a different state, I began my plan. I started it by printing out a few things and then sat outside with my phone and a speaker. I began to play a video of a dog barking really loud. I had figured out which apartment was his thanks to a few neighbors who also were tired of being harassed. I sat there looking across the courtyard to where his apartment was. I waited with a huge smile on my face, and as I hoped for, he stormed out and headed over to where I was. I turned off my video and turned on my recorder without him noticing. His face is red with anger as he looks at me sitting there with a smile. "I'm sorry, can I help you?" I ask him.
"Screw you. I effing told you what I will do to your family if you effing didn't stop, you dumbass. You are ruining my sleep. Now I'm going to get them taken away from you and get you kicked out for not doing as I said. I gave you a damn chance. I hope when they take your dogs that they are killed and you and your mom live inside a cardboard box."
I give him a fake, "Oh dear," look and say, So you are saying that I'm not allowed to make loud noises, including my dog's barking, between the hours of 7 AM and 11 PM, and that I went against the law by doing so?
You know you did.
And you're telling me this is from my porch at 2 PM in the afternoon?
This won't be your porch once I tell the leasing office.
Oh noes! That is a very serious threat for my dogs and my family, isn't it?
Yes it is.
I give him a huge smile and turn off my recorder from my phone. The neighbor is confused now and I ask him to have a seat. I have a few things to show him. I pull out my papers and hand him the first one. It was the county's noise ordinance laws. In our county, a dog's bark was considered the same amount of sound as a loud appliance, so they can bark between the hours of 7 AM and 11 PM. Before he could talk, I pull out another paper. This one states that it is against the leasing terms to threaten another neighbor, and after one warning that the apartment complex had the right to revoke their lease. He looks at me with an understanding of what he had done now. I silence him and pull out one last paper. This one was another leasing term I had found. His face after reading this one had made him turn white. This last one talked about how it was a complete violation of leasing terms to go onto another renter's property and threaten them or their property. This includes the renter's outdoor area. Those found guilty of this violation will have their lease revoked immediately and be forced to leave the apartment within a set time. The scared look on his face was priceless as I silently got up and walked back into my apartment. After he finally left, I called my leasing office and explained what had just happened and agreed to email the recording to them right away. A week later, my mom came home with some news that she had learned from the leasing office. The man had been evicted from his apartment and would be leaving later that week. I found out that my actions had caused the other dog owners of the building to come forward and admit what he had been doing to all of them. After that, there was never another complaint and I threw away the lemon spray collar. My mom still gets anxiety attacks once in a while, but has been getting help to ease those worries. As for me, I don't regret what I did, I just feel bad that it had to come to this. And the next one is from r/regular revenge, but honestly it would also fit pro revenge and is titled "Abuse me and my mother for years, keep us out of our home and stop me from getting a haircut. Enjoy having an entire neighborhood kick your ass and steal your stuff." And guys, just a little trigger warning, this story is a little bit violent, but not too much. However, it is also very satisfying. As my username would suggest, this happened way back in 2011, effing hell, this happened in 2010, I graduated in 2011, which is why I'm fixated on that date, sorry. The reason I'm compelled to share this now is because I graduate soon with my MS degree in mechanical engineering. My grades sucked all through high school, in many ways due to Michael, the subject of this post, and I have struggled with depression and anxiety over the years. I shared this story with my girlfriend this morning and she was shocked at it. I just never thought to share it before, she told me to post it here. My mom dated a guy named Michael from the time I was 7 until December 17, 2010. I had just recently turned 18 and was in my last year of high school. Michael was a person who did not deal well with issues he had from his own abusive upbringing. I've been a crap person before myself and I'm sure I still have a lot of room to improve, so I never like to speak poorly of people because I think it can be accurately assumed that most people have a good reason for being the way they are. It's not an excuse, but I don't think people are bad. I think bad circumstances condition people to behave badly. Michael was a severe alcoholic, he was childish, he was obsessed with knives, would talk about how he wished he could gut people alive, hung around violent criminals and took me around them as a child. He was extremely verbally and emotionally abusive to my mother. My mom wanted him to be my dad though, so to his credit, he filled the dad role as best as he could, but the best he could do was to teach me extremely unhealthy relationship dynamics and how to glorify violence and bravado. At the end of high school, my mom's mom died and left my mom a house. The house was/is decently sized, and while it's still in the ghetto, it is in as safe a part of the ghetto as there is. Everyone that lives in this corner of the city has been here for decades and we all know each other very well. We are like a big family, but we keep to ourselves unless invited in by others. We respect boundaries and that is what makes this small community a good one. Now, important to note, my neighbors and older bros are not angels. These people are violent criminals in their own right, but they were on my side and this is important. So, the house, it was left to me and my mother. Michael refused to let us enter the home. My mom and I lived in the smallest, crappiest apartment in the most violent part of the city. And for 18-year-old me, I had only just begun to reflect on life and realize how crappy Michael and my narcissistic mother had been towards me. I was fed up and living in this disgusting, violent apartment was just fueling my rage every second. One day I was especially furious, I don't know why. I just woke up in an absolute quiet rage, contained myself through the school day, and I was just fixated on getting a haircut. That was my goal for the day, just get a haircut, get home, go to bed. And it is very important to note that I am in a boat for a badly sprained ankle at this time. That comes up later. My mom throws a monkey wrench in my plans. See, she was sure Michael was cheating on her again, so she demanded I go over to the house I grew up in, that he kicked us out of, to inspect and see if there was another woman or if there was evidence of other women being in the home. I protest, but to no avail, and at this point I'm about an inch from exploding. I drive over to the house and I knock at the door for 7 minutes. This pushed me to about 1/2 of an inch from explosion. I grew up in the house. And guys, I know this is kind of random, but you know what this situation reminded me of? Do you guys know the Big Bang story? I just imagined that this guy knocked at the door for 7 minutes and said, Michael, 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 and so on. Anyway, I effing knew the acoustics of it. I don't care if you are in the last room upstairs at the back of the house. If someone lightly taps the front door, you hear that. So I knew he was making me wait as some show of dominance, that this was his house. He eventually unlocks the door and I push it open and push him back in the process. He yells out and asks me what was wrong, and I responded in saying that I was there to make sure he was not effing anyone else in my grandma's house. Now, I am a pretty large guy and Michael was small. Even back then I dwarfed him, but I've always been a gentle giant, as my mom says. I had never gotten into a fight, almost never raised my voice or asserted myself with anyone. So for me to respond so firmly and disrespectfully, with no concern for how he felt, he backed off a bit in that moment. I noticed that. I began walking through every room of the house. I was finding nothing and no one, and I was fine with this. Remember, my goal is the haircut. That's all I want out of life right now. And then I get to my grandma's old bedroom, I open the door and it slams back in my face. Then out stepped Michael's brother, who was about my size, and he says to me,
"Ain't nothing for you in there."
I remember being so angry, it was like past the point of an explosion. I described it to my girlfriend as pure rage and malevolence, yet restrained. I had this black expression on my face, turned around and walked downstairs, and I told Michael in a calm voice, "Get your brother and leave now. I've had enough of you in my life." Michael then, believing I was intimidated by his brother, gets in my face and starts to scream and curse and threaten me. I stood there, honest to God, just looking at him like a lion looks at the weak, small, destructible gazelle, literally thinking to myself, I can break you. He then yells at me to
"Get the F out of my house."
All of a sudden I was snapped out of this trance state and I responded and said, "Black dude, you have no house. You are homeless now. Get your brother and leave." By the way guys, just so you're not confused, the story originally had the infamous N-word, but I just replaced that with black dude. Anyway, he must have, again, recognized that his brother was all the way upstairs and I was inches away from him, but he's in too deep now. He has to commit, lest his pride be wounded. So he says,
"Oh, you think I'm a bitch, huh?"
And of course I responded, "I think you're a homeless female dog." He then turns around and just keeps repeating,
"You think I'm a bitch?"
He eventually comes back with 2 knives in his hands. I see this and at this moment I'm very seriously okay with the thought of dying right then and there. Life had always been crap and I could not even get my damn haircut. This part still makes me cry even right now, so I told him, "You're going to have to kill me the first time you swing at me with those." Then his brother comes downstairs. I never took my eyes off of Michael. His brother stands on the stairs a few feet away from Michael and I. Michael drops the knives and tries to tackle me and push me out of the house. I slip a little because of the boot, but once I get a little friction under the boot, it literally feels like when your little cousin / sibling tries to fight you. In that moment, I thought about how I was about to destroy this man. His brother must have saw me smile, because then he jumped in and started pushing me as well. I don't know if I was stronger than I thought, or if the rage gave me an adrenaline rush, but I was pushing them both back. Michael's brother then starts to kick my boot, which both hurt my ankle and made me slip back. That, coupled with them pushing, eventually pushed me out of the front door, off the porch and down the stairs onto the ground in front of the house. And this is the angriest I have ever been in my life. I was angry to the point where I would have gladly hurt myself to hurt them. I got so overcome with emotion, I started to cry and my breathing got erratic. Michael and his brother were taunting me as this happened, and I just started to take off the boot. I did not want the haircut anymore, I wanted both of them hurt or dead. The next thing I notice is that people started surrounding me. I'm still struggling to regain motor control and take off the damn boot, and then two of my older brothers from the neighborhood, Jiggy and Tyrone, kneeled down and consoled me. Jiggy asked me what was wrong and what happened. I told them all about the crap Michael had done over the years and what happened that day. When I got to the end, Tyrone said, "Hold up, little Chris. These mother effers put you out of Miss Mama's, what everyone used to call my grandma, house, after you told them to leave?" Then both Jiggy and Tyrone started taking their shirts off and told me that they would take care of them if I said it. And I then heard all the stirring behind me. Damn near the entire block was in our yard or in the street in front of our yard. And they were all calling out support. "He ain't gonna do you like that, little Chris, not on this street," and things like that. I looked up at Michael and his brother and I could see the fear on their faces. I just shook my head yes and said not to kill them. Jiggy and Tyrone ran in the house after them and dragged them out into the front yard. Then a circle pretty much formed around them and it was just the most spectacular beatdown I had ever seen. After that, Jiggy said that they would help me take all their stuff out of the house and told me to keep the stuff I liked. So I did exactly that. I went in with like 10 people, I gave some stuff away to them, kept some stuff and pretty much just gave Michael and his brother the clothes no one else wanted. They ended up leaving their clothes. Here is why. The next door neighbor was this old veteran, real gritty, no nonsense old guy named Alvin. Alvin walked out with his shotgun. He walked over to these two bloody pulps on the lawn and said, "Now get the F off my street." And he literally just yelled at them to get up and run or crawl or roll to get off of the block. He followed them stumbling up to the main road and then he calmly walked back. And that was the last day I ever saw or heard from either of them. The next few years were hell. Mom blamed me for ruining her relationship and I had to unlearn all the terrible stuff that I had been taught in life and start to go to school and get my life in order. Things are better now. And the next one is titled, "Don't Mess the Sweet Old Lady's Cat When the Neighborhood Has a Kid Who Knows Everyone." And this one is from r/pro revenge. A little about me first. I was a scrapper as a kid and knew everyone in the neighborhood. I made money babysitting kids and knew the older kids because I was permitted to roam. I am also one of those people that people will tell their darkest secrets to, and I had earned a lot of trust in my neighborhood. I was a pack leader and people generally did what I said. Okay, enough about me, onto the revenge. This is a bit of a long one, but you will enjoy it. Oh, not on mobile, ran it through Grammarly, so whatever errors, I don't give a damn. This is an old story, back from when I was young. I cannot remember the exact age, but it was around 9 or 10, which would be the early 90s. I lived in a small neighborhood, there were not many kids and the ones there were mostly older teens. The brunt of the community was older people. The neighborhood was built in the early 40s and filled up with people after World War II and many of them stayed there. On the block south of me was this old guy who pretty much hated everyone if something that was a kid's, like a ball or a frisbee, and the kid asked for it back, he would destroy it right in front of them. One time a kid parked his bike in the swale, a city-owned property that was outside the home, and this a-hole took the bike and destroyed it. This a-hole has a major vendetta against cats. We did not have a feral cat problem, but many people, including my own, had cats that were indoor/outdoor. We were not on the main road and there was little traffic. Most of the cats did not go far from home, usually just went out chasing pigeons and the few garter snakes that were around. They always came home at night unless they ended up in this a-hole's yard. He started by trapping cats and taking them to the pound. Many families in the neighborhood would get calls about their cats being turned in and having to get them. My family, who were well known at the pound, my mother was an animal lover to an annoying extent, and we were there often, would get calls to inform us that one of our cats was there. When a-hole found out that trapping cats was not getting rid of them is when he escalated. He started poisoning them, but many lived because the symptoms were caught early enough. He was using antifreeze, so he escalated again, and that is when stuff got serious. Suddenly, cats all over the neighborhood were dying and no one could figure out why. It was not until the cat of a sweet old lady got out of the house. She was indoor only, but got out during a package delivery. 3 days later, the cat showed back up sick and dying. This woman was not poor and this was a costly cat, Angora I think, maybe Persian. It was a white fluff ball and this woman loved that cat. She took the cat to the vet and it was determined that the cat had a belly filled with glass shards, but the damage was too massive and the cat died while at the vet's office. This woman was furious. This got around to the neighborhood and it was me who told me that I thought I knew who did it. I thought this because since my mom and I were frequent visitors to the pound, they said my mother who it was that kept bringing our cats, and with a little prodding we found that all the cats that came from our neighborhood were brought in by the same person. I told this wonderful older woman who I thought did it and she was a pistol. She got in her caddy and rolled up to this a-hole's house and confronted him. I was a bit of a free roam kid back then, had to be home by the time the streetlights came on, so I made sure to ride my bike over to see what the fireworks would be like. She rolled up and pulled in his driveway, got out of the car and pounded on his door. I mean pounded. A-hole opens the door and she begins softly saying that something terrible had happened to her cat and that she was just going door to door trying to find out if anyone knew what happened. A-hole responded with a reaction. I was not close enough to hear everything that was said because of this a-hole's hatred of children, but I was close enough to hear what happened next. Sweet old lady went from 0 to crazy in no time. She poked her finger in his chest and said, "I think it was you, you craggy son of a gun. I know that you've been taking cats to the pound and I bet you are the one that killed my princess." Yeah, that was the cat's name. This a-hole just smirked and said,
"Yeah, glass and cat food and some catnip will always work to get those destructive beasts out of the neighborhood. I will keep on doing it and you can do nothing to stop me."
Sweet old lady hauled and slapped this a-hole across the face and turned around and walked back to her car. I was good friends with sweet old lady and often spent time at her house after school because she was alone and needed some company. She was always very kind to me. When I went over next, I asked what happened after she left. She told me she called the cops, but without concrete proof there was nothing that they could do. When they spoke with the a-hole, he admitted trapping cats and taking to the pound, but never said anything about the glass. Sweet old lady was beside herself because she wanted justice for Princess. I got an evil grin in my face and said, "Don't worry, you will get justice." She looked at me and smiled and nodded her head. You see, this all happened in the first part of October. I knew just about every kid and teen in the neighborhood, free roam thing, and I told all of them what happened. The total was about 20 kids/teens that I said, with about 12 of them being teens who could drive and had their incomes. I told them all what I thought we should do. I laid out the entire plot and we all worked to get the things that we needed. When Halloween rolled around, I was unfortunately not able to fully participate in this because I sadly got grounded for getting into a fight with a boy in the neighborhood. I broke his nose, but he grabbed my tit. I was an early bloomer. I was not going to stand for that. Still, I did find out about the aftermath. Halloween night, about 15 people late in the night converged on a-hole's house. As luck would have it, he was not home at the time, his car was still there, but a neighbor relayed to the group that he had left in a car with someone else. The group shattered every window and mirror in his car. Once the windows were broken, they opened the door and destroyed the interior. They poured sand in the gas tank and did something to the engine block, don't remember what. They broke every window in the house, including a sliding glass door in his backyard. All screens were shredded and they put super glue in all the door locks and super glued the mailbox shut. Once the screen was torn, they gained entry. They did not steal anything, but they destroyed the inside of his house. They spray painted everything, including the words "For Princess" on a wall inside the home. Polaroids were taken and I got to see the destruction. They also, just to put the cherry on top X, and TP'd the place. This, from what I was told, took about 3 hours in total, and neither the neighbor next to him or across the street said a damn thing or called the cops. The group left and went back to their homes like it was just a typical Halloween night. I found out from the neighbors, I was very well known in my neighborhood and people tended to tell me things with ease, that the total amount of damage was around $20,000. This was 1990 to 1991, so a F-ton of money, and it seems that the group destroyed some very precious things that he had. Now, the one thing that they did that I am not proud of, if they dumped the urn that contained his late wife's ashes. I think that this was a dick move, but I still believe that he deserved it. This a-hole was furious, but no one saw a damn thing. It took him about a year to get everything fixed. He told the neighbor that his car insurance would not cover the damage to the car and he had to buy a new car, and the car was one of those old Lincoln Land boats that probably add another 15 to 20k onto the total. Police were called, but there was nothing found. This was before DNA and all the fancy CIA stuff, so it was pretty dust for Prince and be on their merry way. He tried to go after sweet old lady, but it fizzled. There was no proof she had anything to do with it. The great thing about all this, there was never another cat that vanished from the area. The a-hole died about a year before I left the neighborhood at 18. From what I heard from a neighbor, he was raging about what happened to anyone who listens. Once I was able to roam again, I was able to get the Polaroids from a friend who gave them to my mom in a sealed envelope. I went to sweet old lady and showed her the pics. She just smiled and gave me $20. She lived for another 3 years. She was wonderful during that time. I wish I still had the Polaroids, but they were lost when I got kicked out of an apartment due to my a-hole ex, but that is a story for another sub. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.